They're called indie gems for a reason, unknown or lesser known titles that somehow, despite not having a massive blockbuster budget or multi-million-dollar marketing machine behind them, manage to completely capture our attention. If you're into fast-paced action RPGs, deep build customization, striking handcrafted art styles, and combat that rewards precision, we've got a game you need to keep on your radar. What's up guys, my name is Fervor, welcome back to the channel, and today we're taking an in-depth early look at Lunarium. Now right up front, I want to be very clear, this is a spoiler-free review. We'll be staying away from late game story beats, major narrative twists, and late stage progression. Everything we discuss today comes strictly from our early to mid game gameplay, so you can watch completely blind without worrying about having the journey ruined for you. Let's dive straight into what makes Lunarium tick, and that is the combat systems. On the surface, you're controlling two female protagonists, Eve and Lune, but the way the developers handle this dual hero mechanic is brilliant. Instead of making you constantly hot swap back and forth, Eve serves as your primary frontline fighter. You're actively controlling her movements, her direct melee strikes, and her dodges. Lune, on the other hand, operates as a specialized support companion tied to context-specific commands. On mouse and keyboard, for instance, her abilities are mapped directly to the Q key, letting you weave your support skills directly into Eve combo chains without breaking your movement flow. This setup creates incredible synergy. For example, tapping Q commands Lune to shoot out a light arrow into an enemy. If you immediately follow up with a left click attack from Eve, Eve performs a high speed dash right along the path of that arrow. It acts as a flawless gap closer, allowing you to zip across the battlefield and immediately punish ranged threats. Alternatively, holding down the Q key charges up a heavier strike from Lune, designed specifically to break key armor points on larger, heavily armored targets. It makes fighting alongside a companion feel fluid, tactical, and incredibly satisfying. Beyond these companion combos, a massive pillar of Lunarium's moment-to-moment combat is its parry and stagger system. This isn't just a flashy defensive button. Parrying incoming attacks build up dedicated stagger bars on your target, and depending on the enemy or boss you're facing, some foes are incredibly resistant to standard light attacks, practically forcing you to stand your ground, time your parries, and break their posture to open up critical strike windows. It gives boss encounters this high-stakes rhythm game intensity, where learning attack telegraphs is just as important as learning your own abilities. Where the game's RPG mechanics truly begin to open up is in its gear and build progression, specifically built around cloaks and embroideries. Through your journey, you'll discover and craft different cloaks, each offering unique passive effects that completely alter your playstyle. You start off with a basic starter cloak that simply boosts your overall hit points, but as you explore, you'll unlock options that fundamentally change how you engage in combat. For my playthrough, I ran a cloak that altered my attack animation and granted a stacking damage buff, meaning the more hits I landed without taking damage in return, the harder I hit. From there, as you upgrade your cloaks, you unlock slots to weave in embroideries. These are rare drops that found throughout general exploration, defeating elite enemies, conquering bosses, or buying from merchants. I leaned heavily into a high sustain aggressive frontline build. I slotted embroideries that boosted my damage every time I healed, increased my maximum resonance, which effectively functioned as your mana pool, and created a feedback loop where spending resonance restored my health, while healing refunded my resonance. That's the beauty of the system. Whether you want to build a glass cannon burst fighter, a parry focused counterattacker, or a brawler sustained build like mine, the combination of cloaks and embroideries lets you tailor Eve to your exact preferred rhythm. To support all this build customization, the game features a really satisfying town and merchant economy loop. After a long exploration run through a biome, heading back to town to process your hard-earned ores and rare resources feel genuinely rewarding. Whether you're turning in materials to unlock new cloak tiers, buying rare embroidery pieces from local merchants, or fine-tuning your stats before heading out into the next region, this downtime between runs gives the game a great pacing balance. It lets you digest your progression and experiment with new setups before tackling the next spike in difficulty. Now, a combat loop is only as good as the world you're fighting in, and Lunarium delivers a remarkably diverse visual and structural journey across its biomes. During my playtime with the game, I explored 3 distinctly different regions. First was a dense forest zone populated by aggressive bear-like beasts and wolf packs that test your crowd control abilities early on. Next, the game shifted into a sweeping Greco-Roman Athens-inspired stone city. This zone featured roaming mechanical colossi and opposing factions of human rogues. What's awesome here is that these factions will actually engage and fight each other out in the overworld, creating dynamic, unpredictable skirmishes you can either intervene in or sneak around. The third area I explored was a stunning reef-based coastal city built around a shifting day and night mechanic. As time passes, water levels physically rise and fall, entirely reshaping the layout of the map and revealing submerged structures. This area was filled with spirit-like aquatic creatures and phantom inhabitants, forcing you to constantly adapt to environmental changes. And across all these biomes, the visual direction is simply stunning. The entire world featured a hand-painted aesthetic heavily inspired by the stained glass art. When the light catches the environment, it creates a luminous handcrafted atmosphere that makes simple exploration feel genuinely special. And speaking of exploration, Lunarium places a heavy emphasis on level geometry and hidden paths. The levels are intricately crafted with shortcuts and winding side routes that loop back into major hubs. While the puzzles themselves aren't overly punishing or obtuse, the game constantly rewards players who take the extra 30 seconds to look around a corner or check behind a waterfall. You're not just finding generic junk either. Hidden chests frequently reward you with rare crafting ores, embroidery upgrade materials, or permanent stat boosts to your health and maximum resonance. And finding a cleverly hidden shortcut across a tough stretch of enemies always feel immensely satisfying. Also want to give a quick shout out to the game UI and HUD design. In a world that's visually dense with hand-painted stained glass artwork, a cluster screen could easily ruin the immersion. Thankfully, the developers kept the on-screen elements remarkably clean and non-intrusive. The in-game map strikes a great balance too. It gives you just enough detail to track points of interest, elite targets, and branching pathways without holding your hands or cluttering your screen with endless objective markers. It keeps your eyes on the gorgeous environments and lets you focus purely on the world around you. As you defeat enemies and collect progression currencies, you'll unlock access to the game's skill tree, and while it looks modest at first glance, it expands significantly as you progress. You have a limited number of active skill slots on your bar, forcing you to make deliberate choices across your kit. In my build, I prioritized a rapid stationary flurry swipe attack that I eventually upgraded to an extended version that dealt way more damage. You also unlock specialized counter abilities designed to counter unblockable red attacks, giving the combat a subtle high-stakes Souls-like flavor where timing a dodge or countering is the difference between surviving or restarting at a checkpoint. Now, we have to talk about the audio presentation and boss variety because this is where the game's polish really stands out. In my playtime alone, I encountered over 15 distinct boss fights, and not a single one felt like a simple palette swap. A huge part of why those fights feel so good is the sound design during combat. Every weapon swing, parry flash, and heavy spell hit comes with crisp, weight-heavy audio feedback. When you land a full combo or parry a massive boss attack, the sound effects sells the impact just as much as the visual effect do. It gives every single fight a punchy, tactile feel that never gets old. Every boss brings unique mechanics to the table, from straight up duel encounters to puzzle heavy fights involving giant aquatic creatures. What makes these encounters pop is how the soundtrack dynamically adapts to who you're fighting. Facing off against a massive feral brute brings heavy mirror match percussions that build tension. Swapping over to a swift ballerina style boss transitions the score into a lighter, elegant string that matches the tempo of her attacks. It has an incredible layer of dramatic flair to every major fight. One important thing worth noting is how Lunarium handles its overall difficulty and checkpoint system. Death is definitely a regular occurrence, especially when you're learning a new boss's rhythm or navigating a dense area, but much like the best action RPGs out there, when you die, it rarely feels like cheap, artificial difficulty. It's on you to read the telegraphs better next time, and best of all, checkpoints are placed sensibly near major encounters, meaning you aren't forced into tedious long runbacks. It lets you jump back into the action, refine your parry timings, and adjust your strategy without losing momentum. While in the preview there were some bosses that were a little bit tougher than I think they should have been, overall fairness is at the utmost. And technically the game does run like a dream. On PC I experienced 0 micro stutters, 0 frame drops, and buttery smooth high frames across every single biome, even during intense boss fights with ton of particle effects on the screen. If there's one main takeaway from our early look at Lunarium, is that this is a project crafted with tremendous passion. Between its razor-sharp combat dynamics, deep cloak and embroidery build customization, and stunning stained glass visual identity and rock-solid performance, it has all the makings of an absolute indie hit. It respects your time, rewards your curiosity, and offers a level of combat depth that will keep action RPG fans hooked for hours. As always guys, if you do appreciate the work that goes into these videos, make sure to leave a comment, drop a like, or even better yet, subscribe. We have a ton of really cool games coming up here on the channel. If Lunarium is on your radar, drop a comment below and let me know what build styles or biomes that caught your eye the most. My name is Fervor. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one very soon.